her to be an impatient person, and there is passion in the sweeps of her uprights. Yet her S's and A's speak of precision, and the lower edge of each line is as exact as it is authoritative. She also either has great faith in the French and English postal systems, or else is so self-assured as to consider the insurance of placing her name or room number on the envelope unnecessary. I lean toward the latter theory.
As this analysis progressed, I recovered my glasses, the better to study my companion where he stood in the bright window, bent over the envelope like a jeweller with some rare uncut stone, and I was hit by one of those odd moments of analytical apartness, when one looks with a stranger's eyes on something infinitely familiar. Physically, Sherlock Holmes had changed little since we had first met on these same Sussex downs a bit more than 8 years before. His hair was slightly thinner, certainly greyer, and his grey eyes had become even more deeply hooded, so that the resemblance to some far-seeing, sharp-beaked raptor was more marked than ever. No, his body had only exaggerated itself. The greatest changes were internal. The fierce passions that had driven him in his early years before I was even born, had subsided, and the agonies of frustration he had felt when without a challenge, frustration that had led him to needles filled with cocaine and morphia, were now in abeyance. Or so I had thought. I watched him as his long fingers caressed the much-travelled envelope, and his eyes drew significance from every smudge, every characteristic of paper and ink and stamp. And it occurred to me suddenly that Sherlock Holmes was bored. The thought was not a happy one. No person, certainly no woman, likes to think that her marriage has lessened the happiness of her partner. I thrust the troublesome idea from me, reached up to rub a twinge from my right shoulder, and spoke with a shade more irritation than was called for. "My dear Holmes, this verges on deductio ad absurdum. Were you to open the envelope and identify the writer, it just might simplify matters."
"All in good time, Russell. I further note a partial set of grimy fingerprints along the back of the envelope, with a matching thumbprint on the front. However, I believe we can discount them, as they have the familiar look of the hands of our very own postal delivery boy, whose bicycle chain is in constant need of repair."
"Holmes, my furtive buttocks await me. The letter."
"Patience is a necessary attribute of the detective's make-up, Russell, and I should have thought the scholars. However, as you say."
He turned away, and the sharp zip of a knife through cheap paper was followed by a dull thud as the knife was reintroduced into the frayed wood of the mantelpiece. There was a thin rustle. His voice sounded amused as he began to read.
"Dear Miss Russell," it begins, dated 4 days ago. "Dear Miss Russell, I trust you will not be offended by my form of address. I am aware that you have married, but I cannot bring myself to assign a woman her husband's name unless I have been told that such is her desire. If you are offended, please forgive my unintentional faux pas. You will perhaps remember me, Dorothy Ruskin, from your visit to Palestine several years ago. I have remained in that land since then, assisting at 3 preliminary digs until such time as I can arrange funding for my own excavations. I have been called back home for an interview by my potential sponsors, as well as to see my mother, who seems to be on her deathbed. There is a matter of some interest which I wish to lay before you while I am in England, and I would appreciate it if you would allow me to come and disturb your peace for a few hours. It would have to be on the 22nd or 23rd, as I return to Palestine directly my business is completed. Please confirm the day and time by telegram at the address below. I believe the matter to be of some interest and potentially considerable importance.